Hi everybody, I'm Steve Hoff from Ultra Dent Tools, and I'm excited to introduce to you our injection molded pull tabs. For years we've been machining our pull tabs on our CNC lathes, and they've been some of the greatest tabs in the industry, and we've had great success with them. A lot of guys have been using them for a long time. And now we've made some improvements to some of the industry standard PDR tabs, and we're pretty confident that our tabs are going to be as good or better than most of the tabs out there. So, and some of the reasons for that is that some of these features that we've changed a lot of different things. Okay, so one of the things is that we've reduced the height on most of our tabs to be as short as possible, so that you can get the maximum stroke on your mini lifter. You'll get more pull out of it. So the longer the pull tab, the less opportunity that you have for travel. And so you really don't want longer pull tabs. So the length of our tabs are as short as any of them in the industry, if not shorter. And also we've got the mag tabs. We were one of the first ones to invent mag tabs years ago. And for those of you guys that don't know about mag tabs, the mag tabs, basically we just put a little magnet inside the tab. And inside our mini lifters and our slide hammers, we insert a little steel set screw. And that allows the tab to actually stick in there with the magnet so that it won't fall out when you're going real fast, like on rails and stuff. So those are new changes. On the thin necks, or commonly known as the dead center tabs, we've improved the thicknesses of the necks on these tabs and increased the radiuses also on those. And then we've changed the head sizes to a little bit more optimal sizes, like that micro one there is just a little bit bigger than the industry tabs that are out there now, but it's still small enough for small dents. Oval tabs, we've taken some of the oval tabs and we've gotten rid of the gussets on them. And that's going to allow a lot more stretch on these tabs. They're going to pull a lot harder because they're going to stretch a little bit more. And so you'll see that on our oval tabs, they're a lot more streamlined than some of the industry tabs that you'll see. And we've reduced some of the neck sizes on these a little bit too as well, and the head sizes, so they're not quite so bulky. So those are real cool. And some of the oval shapes are a little bit different too. So we've improved some of those things. Our thin crease tabs are very thin. They're thinner than most industry tabs that you'll see. And then they've also got a nice point on the end of them, so that those work real well for the creased areas where the creases fade out into nothing. That's going to work a lot better for you than the normal crease tabs that you'll find. And then these four in this group, these are a little bit wider, but still super thin. And they're, again, real streamlined. So these tabs that you see here, this red is the red that we're actually going to, and originally we had problems with the molder, couldn't get the red that we were looking for. We made about 100 sets of these dark red or maroon colored tabs. They're going to be on sale online for about $15 cheaper than the normal 26 pack. So you'll be able to buy these tabs in the 5 series, the 7 series groups, or the 26 pack. So we're going to show you some demonstrations and show you how well these tabs work. So we've got a hail-sized dent in this VW roof rail. We're going to use our standard round pull tabs, and I'm going to use the 5/8 size. So it's a little bit smaller than the dent, so it's a ideal size for that dent. I'm going to put a little heat on it with the heat gun, warm this thing up just a little bit. I've already cleaned it with alcohol. Get a little bit of heat going on that thing. We're going to use our ultra high performance glue. Get an ample amount of that on there. And I want to push that right into the center of the dent. Push it all the way down. Turn the heat off. We're going to let it cool off for about a minute and a half. All right, so it's nice and tacky. A little bit less than 2 minutes there. Get the mini lifter head adjusted. Pretty good pull. Notice that the tab stayed in the mini lifter head. We're going to come back and make another pull on it. So it got a lot of it out. It's still got a little bit of a low right there. So we'll go again on it. Got it all the way adjusted up to where it's got full tension on it. The handle's all the way out. It's going to allow me the maximum pull. Okay, that's a nice pull. Got a little bit of residual. Take some alcohol, clean that up. Okay, so that's pulled that thing up pretty nicely after 2 pulls. There's still some lows on that thing, so we're gonna have to make a few more pulls. With the glue pulling, obviously, you just gotta keep making pulls on it until you get all the lows pulled up high enough to where we can knock it down. The nice thing about these tabs is they stick. So sometimes if you're having trouble getting a low to come up, you can go to the next size bigger tab and just don't use quite as much glue on it. And you'll get a little bit more surface area on it. So I'm going to use a little bit bigger tab right here, and I'm going to try to just hog this thing up right now. So that's coming up real nice now. Alright, so now I'm going to pull a little bit more in here and a little bit more on the top, and then we'll start to knock it down a little bit. I'm going to start knocking that down and we'll see where we're at. I'm going to use the 7/8 inch pull tab again, this bigger one, just to try to lift that center up. It's very subtle, but it's a pretty big area, so I just want to try to get right in the center of that. See how nicely that pulled that thing up nice, and just to where it's just a real subtle mound, real easy to knock down. Best thing to do now is to make another couple of pulls right on both sides of it, and then when you go to knock it down, it'll be just super easy. Okay, so there's a couple of very micro lows in here. Very hard to see. I mean, it's almost perfect, but I'm going to try one of our thin neck tabs to get in there and just make a couple of little pulls just because I want to try to get this as perfect as I can. That's exactly what I wanted right there. I got one more little micro low. All right, so I'm real happy with that. I think that's awesome. It's a perfect example of how our standard round tabs have the power to sit there and make some big pulls, lift a lot of metal, and then we can come back in with the thin neck tabs and fine tune the micro lows and fix a dent perfectly in rails. Okay, so what we have here is we have the ultra thin crease tabs and we have the ultra oval tabs, and there's 7 of each. And our thin crease tabs, the first 3 are very, very thin. And I've got a crease in this steel hood right here. This crease has more depth to it on the right-hand side than on the left-hand side. So I'm going to start to assess as to what tab I would want to use for this. This tab isn't long enough to do the whole entire crease. And since there's the depth of the low, there's a lot more size to that dent on the right-hand side, I could consider maybe using one of the small oval tabs. So if we looked at one of the smaller oval tabs, we could see that might work out pretty well to use that and get the brunt of that crease up on the right-hand side first, and then we'll come back to one of the thin crease tabs. So I'm going to take this small tab. I'm going to use a little bit of 220 sandpaper on it. You can use it to rough it up on a rough floor. I like to just take a little bit of sandpaper to these smooth tabs. It really helps them adhere better. And then we're going to use some of the green Brazilian glue on this tab. Push it all the way down, get the glue squeezed out of it. It's right in the center of the crease in the depth of the low. Let that sit for a few minutes. This green Brazilian glue is solvent-free glue, and it's very fast. So it cures quick, it pulls real strong. It's very good glue. Yeah, this glue you could probably just even wait just about a minute, minute and a half at the most, and it'll be ready to pull. Yeah, it's already setting up pretty good, so let's give that a shot. Adjust the mini lifter. Put the tension on the head so that there's no slack in it. And you could see just how well that thing pulled. It was just a super great pull. It pulled most of the brunt of that low right up. And so now we're left with the crease that would almost fit this tab perfectly right here. So let's take and knock this down just a little bit, and then we'll go with that small thin crease tab. So what I like about this is now it's a lot more even. Most of the right side's been pulled up. Like I said, this tab looks like it's going to fit pretty well. So we'll give this tab a shot on the left-hand side of this crease. You notice I didn't scuff this one yet. I'm going to try it without even doing that because it probably isn't going to take that much of a pull here. These tabs will pull tremendously well. Okay, so we've waited out our minute. Look at that. Ideal. So as I said, this green glue is solvent free. You just have to let it sit for just about 30 seconds or so after you pull it, and it'll just free itself up. So no solvent required with that tab and that glue. And we've got a little bit of high on the center of that left side. Tap that down. Start with the highest points first. So now what we're left with is we have just a teeny little micro crease on the left-hand side and a fairly noticeable line in this one, but the brunt of the low has been pulled up. So we'll give that thin crease tab, the small one, a little bit of a chance on this right one. And then on the left-hand side, we might want to use one of the thin neck round tabs just to try to pull this side up. Okay, so in this instance, because the crease that's left on the right-hand side is shorter than the length of the full length of this tab, when I put the glue on it, I'm just gonna run it about 3/4 of the length of that tab in the center. So I'm just gonna put it in the middle. That way I'm not using the entire tab because I don't really want to pull outside that crease. I just want to pull right in the crease. Okay, there's a minute, and that was totally adequate amount of time. And it really pulled the center of that crease up, which is just amazing. And that's what's so cool about these super thin tabs is they're just they're ideal for getting in the center and pulling up the center of the crease and not pulling too much on the outside. Take a look at this. It's pretty high, so let's knock it down. So if you notice in this case, I'm staying off the center of the crease where I'm hitting it. So I'm hitting on both sides of the crease as I go down it. And that way it's starting to level out that line that's in the center. And so this one's going to be a little bit tough. That line that's in there is very prominent, even though we're getting it pretty level. it's still got a pretty prominent line inside the center of the crease. So as I knock it down, I just want to stay off that line. I'm going to try on the left hand side, I'm going to try one of the thin neck tabs. This is the second to the smallest tab that we have. I'll scuff this baby up a little bit. Try to get that little bit of low that's on the left side there pulled up. All right, looks like it pulled it pretty well. This is pretty much evenly high all the way across, so it kind of doesn't really matter where you start. You can start on one side and work your way down. So this crease is virtually gone. So we're going to fine tune it just a little bit. We're going to look at it from a couple of different angles, but it's virtually gone. Okay, so our crease was right here. Right now I see nothing in it. It's perfectly flat. There's a very faint line in the very center of it where the groove was, and it's almost undetectable. So that was done 100% glue pulling with crease tabs, and I would call that an acceptable repair for sure. Okay guys, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to demonstrate to you guys our Ultra Oval tab series, and what we've got is we've got a quarter panel that was kicked in by Alan Scott at our 2023 dent meetup here in January, and he kicked this dent in, huge cave in, and we worked on this thing for about an hour and a half just trying to get this thing to a push to paint status. And so we're gonna show you just some of the methods that we could use with constant tension with our tower. And I'm gonna use the medium-sized oval tab, and I'm gonna go ahead and put the tab in this low right here, and I'm gonna put some pressure on that thing, and then start knocking these crowns down a little bit and start to relieve some of that pressure, and then I can get in there with a dent tool and work it a little bit at the same time while it's under pressure. Use some of our ultra high performance glue. I'm gonna put a fair amount of glue on this one just because I'm gonna be putting a lot of pressure on this thing. Okay, we'll let that sit for about a minute and a half. Okay, now that this thing is curing up there, it's starting to get pretty good. It's not too tacky, just enough. And we've got a new addition to our accessories. This is our 834 pull head, and what we've done is cut a slot in it so that we can use this for these kinds of tabs with the straps for constant tension. So we're gonna loosen this guy up a little bit. I'm gonna put this thing on with the top facing down so that it won't fall off. I've already got my tower adjusted at the angle that keeps this thing perpendicular to the panel. So you can see that starting to put some real tension on that. All right, so now that we've got some good tension on that, we're gonna start knocking it down. So I'm working on this buckle right here, and I wouldn't be able to do this unless it was under constant tension like this. What's great about the tower is that I don't have a bridge with all this stuff in my way. I've just got a little bit of obstruction, and that's not too bad at all. I can really get around this thing. So as I'm knocking these buckles down, it's relieving all that tension and pressure that was built up in there in those buckles. So no other way to do it other than constant tension. So now what I can do is I can actually get in there with a dent rod and work some more of the low while it's under pressure as well. I'm going to take my soft tip double bend, go inside the quarter panel area. I've got the interior pulled out of the way. All right, so I'm getting right inside this low right here. The other thing I can do is just get right underneath the tab where the real depth of the low is, and I can help it up a little bit. You know, I'm gonna come back in and put a little bit more pressure on the ratchet strap because it's loosening up. Back to the bottom side of the lower side of the tab, pushing up in that low area. I always want to be careful when I'm pushing behind the tab because I can't see how much I'm pushing it out. I'm going to get in there on the top side of it a little bit where I see some low. Okay, that happens. So without any pressure on it right now, I'm only going to be able to knock it down so far, and it may pop back in, but let's just see what we can do. Okay, so now what I'm left with is the biggest part of the low is right here, and it's pretty high along that buckle right there. We'll put a smaller tab here, put some constant tension on it, and then we'll knock that buckle down. Taking some shape now. Looking a lot better. Okay, so I've got a pretty good sized low in here, a low going vertically up and down there. It's a little bit buckled in those areas, and other than that, it's starting to take pretty good shape. So we're gonna put a tab here, try to knock that big high area down there, and then we'll push up on this area once it's under tension with the dent tool and try to level that stuff out. In the meantime, we can talk about this one right here. This one's probably a little bit out of view, but you can still see that there's a big buckle on this side and a low there. So we'll do the same thing. We'll put a tab here and then knock down that buckle or crown on the top of it. Holding its shape now, it's not popping in and out, even as hard as I'm knocking down on it. So it's tightening up for sure, and it's starting to level out. Okay, so we've got this big buckle up here, and there's actually a double buckle, a little buckle and then a big buckle and then a low in that whole area from the repercussion of his cave in right here. So we're gonna just put this tab right here, put a little constant pressure on that, and then we're going to knock that crown down. This is a prime example of how well the ultra high performance glue works because it hangs on like well into the repair. 10 minutes into the repair, it's still hanging on because a lot of these glues would, the faster drying glues are going to pop off a lot sooner. So that's ideal right there to be able to hold that kind of tension on the low, knock down all the crowns and highs around it. Now while it's under pressure, I'll do some pushing on it with a dent tool. Okay, got some tension on that. That's tightening everything up. Then it's going to allow me to work this area a little bit more with the dent tool. And then I'm going to work a little bit up here. what it is now is we got like a pretty good sized low right there. Most all of this is pulled up pretty good. So I'm gonna put a tab over here, and then that'll allow me to knock this down a little bit better and then push on it. So that was really critical right there. Just that little bit of extra pressure allowed me to hold enough tension on it to be able to knock it down without having it suck in. So what we had was we had so much trapped pressure up inside that main impact area of the dent that by pulling on the outer edges of that, after we've got this thing much more shaped, as we knock these final highs down, it's relieving that tension and it's allowing the metal to go back into the areas that were still low and oil canning. A little bit of oil canning still right here. One of the tricks you can do with this is you can make a whole bunch of pushes with a sharp tool around in here, just enough before you break the paint to kind of cold shrink this area where it's stretched. So I'm going to go ahead and do a bunch of light hits in there, and we'll see if that tightens it up a little bit. So you can see that glue pulling alone is not going to get us where we need to be on these types of big crash dents. So what we have is we have a couple of buckles here that we've already massaged about halfway up and out. So we've got a little bit of a low right here. So I'm going to just use an example of this small little tab, no gussets on it. I'm going to scuff it up. And we're going to put some constant tension on this little tab just to show you kind of how strong it is and how you can utilize these little baby tabs for some cool stuff. All right, let's see what we got. That left a pretty noticeable high, which it'll knock down easily. Okay. So we just got a few lows in here that we just need to work up a little bit, and then that whole area is going to be pretty well good to go. Okay, so that's more than adequate for push to paint. We could actually finish this area 100% PDR, no problem. So a little bit more time spent here, this area would be done. You know, in many cases, some guys like myself, crazy guys that would want to sit there and work on a car for 2 days straight, we could get this panel probably perfect in the end, but in this situation, just trying to get it to a push to paint status. So as you can see, we've got this panel easily to a push to paint 70% or better status. We could probably have kept going on this thing for more hours. We had about 4 hours in this repair so far. Which is pretty amazing for as much damage as was actually there. And with those oval pull tabs and constant tension with the tower, we were able to do some amazing work here that you would not have been able to do otherwise. So these oval tabs have definitely proved themselves in this instance. So now that you guys have seen these pull tabs in action, you can see the benefits of these key features of the improvements that we've made. Come check these out at ultradenttools.com.